Masoud. So based on that introduction, I don't have to explain too much that I'm not a real psychiatrist. I've just done what technology's done for about 20 years and stolen the title. We had architects, we had engineers. I felt we could also have psychiatrists along the way. So as Masoud mentioned, I've got about 20 years experience in the industry. And the business that I now run, it's just me, it's an advisory business working to help companies and people and individuals use their technology in a responsible and sustainable way. So what I'm here to talk about today is not so much around mental health. I'm not a mental health professional, but how technology is impacting our mental health today. I'm going to look at a little bit of the history around the technology revolution that we're going through and why what we're seeing today with the expansion of emerging technology isn't actually that new. It's about 300 years old or more if you go back further. And then finish with some tips on how to finish it. On how to overcome mental health, not how to finish technology. Hopefully I don't have to refer to these, but I'm bringing them with me just in case, because there's a few facts in there that I just want to refer back to. So a little bit about me. As I said, I've been in the industry for about 20 years. I have a Bachelor of IT, and I also have a Master's of Management. I haven't quite gone the full step to get a PhD yet. I need to get sign-off from my wife to let me go to Edinburgh so I can get a PhD in whiskey, because if it's going to be anything, it's going to be something fun. So, where we've got to today, technology has helped deliver a huge change in industry. And as I said before, it's been going on for about 300 years. But every day we're bombarded with headlines that tell us that we're getting stressed out, that we've got too much technology, and that eventually robots will replace us. Now the reality is robots will replace us. In many cases they already have. But, there's a huge but, and we'll get to that later. What we're also finding is that people are starting to become overwhelmed with the technology they use. I myself, I was counting it this morning, I've got 7 email addresses, 6 of them that work might come in through. I have an instant messenger channel, I have a Facebook account, I have a LinkedIn account, I have 2 Slack channels where people are connecting me through, and I also have a third one using Microsoft Teams. So I have a lot of information that can be coming at me from any different direction, and I'm not unique in that. There's other people doing the same thing as well. So what we're finding is that as people get bombarded with more messages through their technology, as their toaster becomes more self-aware, we had some great ads last week telling us that modern toasters had more processing power than the Apollo rockets that sent man to the moon. As our toasters become more self-aware and our fridges tell us when we're running out of milk, it starts to become quite overwhelming for people. And that leads to what has been branded techno stress. Now, I don't want to claim making up techno stress, it's been around for about 30 years as well. But it's the phenomenon where we are being bombarded by so much information from our technology that we feel overwhelmed by it. Some of the symptoms and the causes of techno stress, the feeling that technology is taking over our lives. So how many people here have taken work home and done work at home because they can't complete it at work? Many of you. Now, a tongue-in-cheek comment I made to a friend today was, I thought I'd finished homework when I left school, but technology and all those interruptions I talked about have made it so hard for us to actually get our jobs done that it's now starting to encroach in our family life and outside of work. And what that's causing is a lot more stress on people, techno stress. Second one, overload, not being able to keep up with all the tasks that are coming through. As I mentioned before, all the channels that work is coming through. Fortunately, 3 of those email addresses are just, no one knows about them, so I don't receive anything. But for most people, there is an overload of information. The average office worker receives 120 emails a day. Probably 80% of them they don't even need to read. Probably 90% of them they don't read. But it's that number that's sitting there telling you you've got an unread email that starts to get on people's minds, starts to stress them out. And then you look at your phone and you've got unread Facebook notifications, you've got unread messages. Following on from that is the complexity. We are expected to use technology everywhere, every day, and in everything, and there's still plenty of people who actually don't know how to get things going. They don't know how to turn things on. They're sitting there having to teach themselves. And while modern app development is about easy to use, and the games we saw before, very easy to use, but that could be because I played Mario as a kid as well. So, but there is a lot of people out there who are just feeling overwhelmed by the sheer amount of information that they're getting through to them and how to actually use that. Insecurity as well, for the older generations. The ones who aren't familiar with technology and the ones who aren't digital natives, like the millennials that are coming through, they're sitting there thinking, if I can't get on top of this, I'm going to lose my job. Someone younger, smarter, going to come along, take over from me. And finally, is my job even going to exist tomorrow? I keep hearing about these robots that are going to come along. What does that mean for me? Will I still be here tomorrow? The reality is that the pace of technology is increasing. And where we're heading today is something that historians are terming the fourth technology revolution, the fourth industrial revolution. It started with Industry 1.0, which was the steam engine and the weaving loom back in the 1700s. And it actually starts even further back than what that points out to. It started in about 1725. The first automation, the first robotic process automation, for those of you familiar with that term, was in 1725. And it was a loom. What we've then seen throughout is Industry 2, which is mass production in the assembly line. Henry Ford was pretty good at getting that going for us. Industry 3, automation, computers and electronics. And then now Industry 4, brought about by the internet, the Internet of Things and the Internet of Connected Things. What we're at now is a point where technology is invading every facet of our life. Every day and every minute of every day, we're interacting with something that involves something that's connected, whether it be waiting at the traffic lights, which are talking back to Auckland Transport's head office, or whether it be sitting at your desk downloading your emails. So it's fair to assume that it is going to take our jobs, because it always has. Researchers have predicted that we lose 50% of all jobs every half century, and that since the start of the Industrial Revolution, we've lost about 200 jobs. These are some of the jobs that have disappeared in the last 50 years. Gone. They just don't exist. What's unique with them is, while they're billed as jobs that don't exist anymore thanks to technology, I think there's one there, 7 of them only existed because of technology in the first place. So 7 of them were brought about in the last 300 years. The one that I say won't be is the bowling alley pin setter, because ten-pin bowlings are, I think it's about 1,000 years old as a game. So someone's always been putting those pins up. But the rest of them, even right down to the railway ticket seller, that was something that was only the Industrial Revolution and the steam engine that brought about a job. Before that, didn't exist. So it's fair to assume that technology is giving as much as it's taking away. About 100 years ago, most of the world worked on farms, manual labour, a lot of hard work. The biggest transport sector in the world was the horse, or the biggest transport device. And I do need to refer to my notes for this one, sorry. So in 1900, that's New York. That's a street in New York, and it's very hard to see. But the piles along that street, so that photo was taken in 1893, the piles along that street, anyone want to guess what they are? Horse manure. Well done, horse manure. So in 1900, in London alone, not counting New York, there was 11,000 horse-drawn cabs and several thousand buses that each needed 12 horses a day. That was 50,000 horses in London, which, pardon the language, but that's a lot of shit on the street. So the world was evolving, and one of the biggest problems they were facing into was all that manure on the street. It was disgusting, it was dirty, and it was leading to disease. Typhoid and various other diseases was rife. Horses were literally dying in the street and being left where they died. What experts were predicting at the time is that cities would be overwhelmed by manure within 50 years. And then practically overnight, it was no longer a problem. So practically overnight, everybody involved in the horse industry, from making carts to training horses and breeding horses, to making horseshoes, to driving carts, to growing feed, practically overnight, those jobs disappeared. I'm going to hope that someone can throw out why. Anyone want to throw a guess as to why? No, we brought the horses in after that. We brought the motor car in. So what we're finding now, obviously, is that combustion engine isn't that great for cities. It's still dirty, but it doesn't bring typhoid, so it doesn't kill us as easily. I mean, it's going to hurt more than a horse if it hits you. But overnight, all those industries disappeared, and suddenly a whole new bunch cropped up again. Mechanics, drivers, again, different skill set, but drivers, and everyone that was involved in moving motor vehicles around the country. So what we then found over that time is that technology has actually created more jobs than it's destroyed. So while we've lost half of all jobs, and it's predicted that we no longer have 90% of jobs that we've had over time, so all of them are gone, we're actually finding that unemployment is down, wages are higher, and quality of life is better than it's ever been before. And that's been driven by technology. So again, I showed 8 jobs that disappeared in the last 50 years. These are 8 jobs that never existed 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I was talking to a gentleman last night, and when I mentioned to him that there's a number of jobs, his son does that. Straight away he picked it up. He said that's something that didn't exist. Now security management was there, but this is cyber security. So this is something that jobs have disappeared, but the jobs that are disappearing are the low-skilled, highly manual, very back-breaking, probably kill you before you're 50 kind of jobs. The ones that are coming out are highly skilled, knowledge working, and they're going to keep us going a lot longer. Sorry, going for another note change again. And the thing is, it's not just in the big industries like New Zealand where this is happening. What we're also starting to see is developing countries that once upon a time had a very low economy are now more productive and more efficient. Farmers in Kenya and shopkeepers in India who have a cell phone are at least 1% a year more profitable than if they didn't have one. And if that cell phone has the internet, that's exponentially more. So as technology evolves for us, there's no need to stress about losing our jobs because there's going to be a job out there for us. It might not be what we're doing today, but it's going to be something along those lines. And as I talked about before, with technology getting better at, or making our lives a lot better, this is an example of a robot that has been developed to help nurses in hospitals. I can go off script now because I know what's coming next. Moxie has been developed to help take away a lot of the low-value menial tasks that nurses were doing. 2 things have come about from that. One, the nurses have got more time to spend with patients. So from a mental health perspective, a lot of patients were stressed out because they didn't know what's going on. It's a scary time being in hospital. Suddenly the nurse is there with them more often. What Moxie's doing is it's running around, it's pre-programmed with a bunch of tasks. So when a patient is discharged from hospital and the room is marked as cleaned by the cleaner, Moxie shows up with some new sheets and towels for the next patient. And what that means is when the nurse shows up with the new patient to put them in, they don't have to worry about sheets and towels. They're there. Specimens taken to labs. Now, what this might mean is that a traditional role in hospitals, the orderly, that role might disappear. But if you lose 4 orderlies, you might get 2 more nurses. And the nurses are a lot more valuable. Don't want to run down orderlies, but nurses are a lot more valuable than the orderlies. So Moxie's actually changed the hospital as a result. But what they've also found is the patients love it. The patients are sitting there going, what is that? Can I have a selfie with that? I want to show people how cool that robot is and how much that robot made my stay better. Kids are asking what the arm can pick up. It's got a little arm on it. What can that arm pick up? So again, it's helping lift patient spirits. It's helping with the mental health side of things there. So to finish, how do we manage techno stress? My main advice to anyone is don't use technology for the sake of it. Don't think that just because a system or a tool is going to make your life better, it will. Don't buy a toaster that's connected to the internet. Don't buy a teddy bear that sings your child to sleep a different song every night. Just don't. Just buy a toaster. Just buy a teddy bear. Sing your own child to sleep. If you're a manager, encourage work-life boundaries. Like I said, we're meant to have given up homework when we left school, and yet people are busier and busier and busier after work. So encourage those work-life boundaries. And if you are a manager, don't set a double standard and praise someone for responding to an email after hours. Don't punish them for it, but don't encourage it. Check that you've got the right tools. And this is really important for companies who may have more than one system doing the same thing. They may have more than one system their staff have to know and have to use and access on a daily basis. Coming back to that healthcare example, one of the biggest complaints in the Waitemata District Health Board is the amount of passwords every doctor, nurse and medical professional has to use in their day-to-day job. So check you've got the right tools and check they're not bringing your staff down. Review processes and procedures. And this ties back into that other one as well. Are people doing things they don't need to? Are you using technology in the right way? Have you got too many passwords? Why do we need to have 15 passwords on a system? Why? Why do I need 6 emails, 7 emails?
And you have to keep changing them every 3 months.
100%. Have to keep changing them, have to keep remembering them. And then suddenly you've written down your password so you don't forget it. Someone steals that password, someone steals a lot of money from the company, and you're even more stressed out than you were yesterday. It has happened. Not to me, thankfully. But again, why do I need 7 emails? 5 of them I've tried to say to people, I don't need that email, just direct it to the one I've got, my own one and only, but I've still got them. And the last one, reduce unnecessary communication. And it's something, having come from a corporate background, I've seen a lot of. A lot of emails get sent from there to there, and then from there to there, and then back again. Just go over and talk to them. Pick up the phone, have a chat. You know, people aren't scary. What's happening is if you're sending email after email after email after email, and then a text message and then a phone call and then a Slack message and then this and then that, someone's getting back to their desk and they've suddenly got 20 different things they have to respond to, and they just don't want to. It's stressful. What are they missing out on? But they have to go through it because they might be missing out on chocolate cake in the lunchroom, or they might be missing out on a key update about the systems they are using. So reduce the unnecessary communication. And then there's a 6th one that's up there, that's not up there, sorry. And that's, who's in control? Is it you or the computer? When it gets too overwhelming and you're sitting there thinking you can't cope, turn it off. Because what's the worst that can happen? But you'll get another job. It is, yes. I was expecting that. So just turn it off. Walk away, step away, take the dogs for a walk, play with the kids, get out in the sun, go to the beach. It doesn't matter. Get away, leave your phone behind, because it will still be there when you get back. Unless you get fired and they disconnect everything. But just step away. For your own sake, for everyone's sake. For me, if I've sent you that email, you're going to send one back to me. I've got to read that email now. Now I'm stressed. So I've stressed myself out by sending you the email in the first place. So just stop. Turn it off, pick up the phone and call. Thank you.